helping young people realize how they really can and ought to be leaders in the profession, just like you are.
Yeah, I think someone said that the future is very bright for accountants.
The circumstances that exist in one's life.
Barry, thank you so much for being on my podcast today. How are you?
Rosie, I am great. It's good to be with you. It's good to see you again from your days in the Leadership Academy, and I look forward to having a great conversation with you.
Thank you so much. We have a special guest on our podcast today. Barry is the CEO of Association of International Certified Professional Accountants. So Barry joined the AICPA in 1995 when he was 37 years old, and he's now the longest serving CEO in the organization's history. So we're going to have an amazing conversation to understand more about Barry's career path. So first and foremost, Barry, can you introduce a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I think that was a nice introduction, so thank you for that. So, Rosie, I grew up in South Louisiana. I went to a very nondescript university. I worked in a very, very small CPA firm, made partner at a young age in that firm, and then became the CEO of the Louisiana CPAs. And then, as you said, in 1995, at 37 years old, I was fortunate enough to be named president and CEO of the AICPA. And then, of course, since then, we've merged together AICPA and SEMA, and we're by far the world's largest professional accountancy body. And I'll be retiring at the end of December after basically 30 years in this role. So I've had the great honor of representing the CPA profession and all over the world and all different types of issues, and really help to try to create a great profession for the future.
I remember when you attend my leadership academy, I think you were in Japan at that time. So we were able to see you through the video only during that class.
Well, Rosie, you were unfortunate because I think that's the only one I ever was not there physically face to face.
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the only one I was not physically there. And I felt really bad about it, but it could not be avoided. So it was just an important meeting that I had to be attending that conflicted. So, but the Leadership Academy, and you're a graduate of that Leadership Academy, has been fantastic. And we have one internationally now as well. And it's really about helping young people realize how they really can and ought to be leaders in the profession, just like you are.
Yes, I learned so much from the Leadership Academy class, and I made so many amazing connections from there. So I would say that Leadership Academy just changed my career, changed my mindset significantly. So that's amazing. Even we just saw you through the video, Barry. It was a great time.
Well, thank you, Rosie, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. You know, and it's really important what the leadership is all about. And I think this is important for young people that may be listening. A profession to be successful, it's not only about what the profession is, but it's about cultivating leaders in the profession going forward, which you are. And it's about people committed to making sure that the profession is successful going forward. You can't just sort of say the profession is the way it is. It has to continually evolve. And young people and people who want to be leaders in that process are very important to be future members of our council, our board, committees, etc. And the graduates of the Leadership Academy over the years have been very active in really helping create the future for the profession.
Yeah, I think someone said that the future is very bright for accountants. So that's not wrong saying that.
No, it's not. I mean, there are challenges. Look, I mean, artificial intelligence, and maybe we'll speak a little bit about that, will change some things. But the reality is that the profession has to continue to evolve to be critically important to society and to business, as it has been, for the last 130 or so years. But it's always changed. And, my job really was to help make sure we were changing rapidly, and the world expects things to change rapidly.
It's just so fast. I couldn't imagine just in 2023, I attend AICPA Engage and learn about AI, and now AI is everywhere. And literally, I use AI every day. So it's changed so fast. If you don't pick it up, you may get behind. You may not lose your jobs because of technology, but you may lose your job because of people who know about technology more than you do. So that will
Right.
be an issue.
I think that's well said, and it certainly can have an impact on promotions and all of those things. But, even stepping back from a person's job, it's about the profession having a critical role in the things that are important to society.
Yeah, and you mentioned about your role in this in at AICPA is to make sure that the profession gets involved. And I read your article on AICPA magazine, and I'm very impressed about your earlier stage in your career when even when you start from high school, you skip a year in high school and you graduate college in only 3 years, and then you move so fast in your career. So I would love to hear more about at your early age, in early 20s. Why did you go with accounting and what motivated you to just move so fast in this profession, move up so fast?
Well, you're a factor of the people around you in your success. I like to say you are who are the people around you, and the circumstances that exist in one's life. I grew up, my family, my father was one of 13 and my mother was one of six. And if you take all 19 of those families, I was the youngest person in that sort of first cousin round. And in South Louisiana is where I grew up, and it was a very, very family oriented issue. But the next closest person to me was like 4 or 5 years older than me, and physically, in the sort of the way the geography is, even my closest friend was a couple of miles away from me. And so I sort of maybe grew up as an adult as a child, if you want to sort of say it that way. I was always around adults, even at a very young age. My sister and brother were 10 and 11 years older than me. So I was just sort of always in an adult situation, and the conversations that I were in, and I really didn't, there wasn't a lot of young kids around my age around where we lived. And so it sort of affected my frame of reference to a large degree. And frankly, I was fortunate enough to be, I guess, intelligent enough to move through the schools, the grades of school very, very quickly. And I always just had early goals. And, in my 20s, I graduated from college at 20. I graduated in high school in 3 years, and in college, basically 3 years in a semester. And I had a scholarship, so I started working on my master's. But then I went to work in a very small CPA firm in my hometown. It sort of was an interesting story, Rosie, because I went to a nondescript university, Nicholls State University, just a regional state university in Louisiana. And I actually planned to move away, to go to either New Orleans or Houston. But this little tiny CPA firm was forming at that point, and they offered in my hometown, and they offered me the same amount of money as the big firms were paying in Houston. And so I was getting married very young as well. And I said, well, we can always move away, which maybe wasn't the smartest thing to ever say, but I said we could always move away. So I started with this very, very small firm. And actually, I had an opportunity in that firm to be put in client situations very, very, very quickly. I was senioring jobs at 9 months, and all of those types of things that were really important, to learning things quickly. And so that really helped propel me. But there are a couple of key stories that I think about people around you. The day I passed the CPA exam, there were two partners in the firm, and one of the partners came down and congratulated me. And he said, this is the very first day I got my grades passing the CPA exam. He said, Barry, I'm going to call up the Louisiana CPA Society, so the state society in Louisiana, and I'm going to take myself off of a committee, and I'm going to have them put you on a committee. Now, he saw something in me or whatever. And so literally, I was on a state CPA committee the very first day I was a CPA, literally the very first day I was a CPA. And, I had other opportunities. I remember about 9 months into my job. I was back then, the wages were very low. This was in 1979, and I had a job offer outside of public practice for about 70% more than I was making, which is a big increase. I I went into the office of the managing partner. It was a two-partner firm at that point, and I said, "Can we talk about this?" And he said, "Yes, let's go to lunch." And so the two partners and I went to lunch, and it was about a 2-hour lunch. And basically, I told them my goal was to be a partner at 25. They said that that my future was fantastic, and they, complimented me, and they painted a picture for me of what life would be like in this firm. It was the firm of it never had more than 20 people in this firm. And they painted a picture for me that I didn't want to leave to take a job making a lot more money. And in fact, they said, "Look, your future is very, very bright in this firm, but we're not going to adjust your pay. You have to stay here because you have to see the future and you want to see that future." And I made the decision to stay. And, and by the time I was 25, I was a partner in the firm, and all of those types of things sort of propelled. And then the reason why I left and started what I'm doing is a whole different story. But, I think that public accounting is very, very positive. And in small firms, you learn a lot about business in a different way. And everybody has a different makeup, and my makeup was more aligned with small entrepreneurial businesses and how I could help them be successful.
I'm just curious why you had a plan of being a partner at 25 at a very young age. Why 25? Why not 24, 26?
Yeah. So it goes back again to one of those partners in the firm, the two partners in the firm. I was very early on, we had our wealthiest client, unfortunately, passed away. And I was, we were starting to do the estate tax return for him. And it wasn't something I knew anything about, but the partner said, "I want you to do this. It's going to be a big, big job for us." On the way, he and the other partners in the firm, as I continued my career, always talked about having goals. And I had written goals. And so I had, they taught me to write goals. And one of my goals was to be a partner at 25. I just felt like I was capable of doing that, and I wanted to achieve at that level, and I wanted to do what was necessary to be successful in that. And so, I had that as a written goal, and I worked really hard. I made them aware of that goal, and they made it happen, or maybe we made it happen because I obviously had to work really hard too.
Did you have to sacrifice something like the time with your family and friends in order to make this goal?
Yeah, I certainly, when you're going to work that hard, or whatever the case may be, you're going to be thrown into some positions that you have to step up, right? So when I was there around the time that I had that job offer that I just mentioned, making a lot more money, that I turned down, several people left the firm, several staff people left the firm. And so I was thrown into actually senioring our largest audit client at that point in time at 9 months. And that was a big challenge, and I stepped up to that. And then when I was making partner, at that point we had three other partners at that point, and I would have made the third partner in the accounting and auditing space and one in tax. And so the deal was sort of, all right, we're going to make you partner, but you have to retrain yourself in tax because we need two partners in tax and two partners in accounting and auditing. And so I agreed to do that, but on one condition, that I kept our largest audit client, because I didn't want to be just in tax. And so I made, certain commitments to train myself and to go to schools to train a totally different discipline that I had spent the first several years of my career on. And of course, it paid off very, very nicely. The interesting juxtaposition of that, Rosie, is 3 years after I made partner, the Louisiana Society, which I was very involved in. I just told you I was on a committee the first day I was a CPA. The executive director of that organization was hired away by actually the AICPA in a vice president's role. And people who knew me in the state encouraged me to apply, or basically it was sort of a slam dunk to become the executive director in Louisiana at that time, which meant I had to leave the firm. So 3 years after making partner, I had to leave the firm, and if I was going to take that job. And again, I went back to my then partners and I said, "I have this job offer, and should I, what are your thoughts?" And the first time when I didn't leave, they didn't offer me more money. They said I have to prove myself. And the second time they said, "Oh, we're going to pay you more money. We don't want you to leave." And I said, "No, I am going to leave because this is something that I want to do." And so I left and became the CEO of the Louisiana CPA Society. And then 7 years later, I had the opportunity to become president and CEO of the AICPA. And at obviously a very young age, as you mentioned, 37 years old. So my career has sort of been just those three jobs: a very small CPA firm, the Louisiana CPA Society, and president and CEO for the AICPA. So people saw stuff in me and they helped me, and I had goals and I worked towards them.
I'm so determined about I have this goal. I'm going to make it very clear to everyone. I'm going to stay focused and I'm going to achieve this goal. And this goal is really ambitious. I have to give you that. And at that young age, I'm glad that people did not turn you down, because in my case, when I work in private for 5 years and I moved to public working in audit, and then the very first day at my job, I told my partner, I told my manager that a year from now, I would like to be a senior. I would like to work as I was willing to work as hard as needed. I just need a very clear direction. What I need to do, how many hours I need to achieve, how many audit I need to go through. Like, I asked, but people did not take me serious enough. That's why I'm very happy and glad that people took that serious, and then to make who you are today. Otherwise, it would turn out very differently, because it turned me away from audit. And so I walked away from audit and moved to tax, and I love it.
Well, you did a good job expressing your goals, so I compliment you for that. I clearly expressed mine. I had written goals. I did have a partner who taught me that, or a partner in the firm, and later was a partner of mine, who taught me about the need for written goals, some of which you share and some of which you don't. I had a lot of those. And you have to be willing to change them. You have to be willing to understand that not everybody reaches every goal. But for instance, I had a goal. This sort of is going to sound funny, but I had a goal to fly around on a on an airplane, on a commercial airplane, and get off and make speeches related to the profession. And certainly my job has certainly been that. And so it's just, I think you can imagine, not every goal I've ever written down have I achieved. The goals have changed as I've gotten old. For instance, I had a goal to retire when I was 55, and when I got close to 55, I said, that's a dumb goal. Why would I want to do that? So, you have to be willing to change, but it's not just having a goal, it's doing the things that are necessary to achieve those goals. And also, as you just said, Rosie, having people around you that support them. And you have to be able to talk to people around you. People sometimes have goals and they don't articulate them around their bosses, or they don't feel confident enough to have those conversations. And people generally will help you meet those goals. And like you did, you said, I want to know exactly what to do. That's important as well. And not every environment works right. Not every environment is right for you. But it is important that you think about what you want to achieve, how that affects your employer, and how that can be positioned to be to their benefit. I think that's a really important thing. And then you have to have the ability to communicate, and then frankly build steps to actually make that work. I mean, it's like, I have a friend of mine who was a high school teacher, and she tells the story in high school that she would talk to her students, and she tells the story of a junior in high school who she'd say, what do you want to do? And he'd say, I want to be a doctor and a professional basketball player. And she said, well, you might want to think about that, because you're a C student and you're 5'4", and you're probably not going to be a professional basketball player. And if you don't get your grades up, you're probably not going to be a doctor. So you have to be able to discuss your goals and get real life feedback from people you trust and people you respect. And I guess people always saw things in me and helped me along the way.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you about that. That you need to, as long as you're willing to commit yourself to the goal, you need to make sure that you're going to work hard to make it happen. Yeah, I worked really hard during that first year. I stayed very late to do, and then asked all the complex audit I could do, and asked some small side I can do from beginning to the end. So at the end, some people say, yes, Rosie, she's ready. But the one who did not want me to be promoted is the one I communicate in the first day.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, I learned a lot from that, but I did not give it up. When I moved to another firm, I still keep that attitude. I know exactly what I want. This is how long it takes. Please guide me through there, and I work hard for that.
Yeah.
So I love that attitude because I have the same kind of mindset with you, but you're a lot better than mine. So that's I want to throw it out there.
Not better, just different.
I'm just curious, when you move up that fast at a very young age, you probably deal with a lot of leadership challenge. And I know that even the firm is less than 20 people, but you probably still have people work below you. You have to manage staffs. So, like, what experience early in your career that prepare you for the leadership role in this profession when you become the working at the state society and also at AICPA?
I grew up in an environment where I was around adults and not around that many people who were my age. I grew up in a geographic area that was dispersed, and yes, I had friends in school, but they were not necessarily close physically to where we did a lot of things together. And I was always in family situations. I grew up in South Louisiana, and South Louisiana is a strong family culture. But I was always the youngest, and I was always around a lot of adults. I can remember when I was 6 years old, sitting around, and my father, who's been deceased for a long time, but um, there was this adult conversation, and I was 6 years old when I was going to weigh in on that conversation, and he came, the other adults in the room were not interested in listening to a 6 year old about what I was going to say about that particular conversation. And I remember my father was only sixth grade educated. And he said, I remember it like it was yesterday. He said, wait a minute, let Barry have his say on this particular issue. And he sort of made the adults listen to me as a 6 year old. And I don't remember exactly what the conversation was about, but I remember precisely him doing that. And so you're right, the circumstances you grow up in, but I always grew up in an adult environment, frankly. And so it required me to step up and to be comfortable in that process. And so therefore, I always had goals from a young perspective. I skipped a year in high school. I didn't have to do that, but I wanted to do that. Skipped a year in college. And it's just something that always was just built into me because basically the people around me, I don't know, I was very fortunate, but the people around me always saw things in me and, treated me in a way that was more adult-like than childlike, even when I was a child. And including the elements of trust they put in me was very much above my age grade, if you want to think of it that way. So you are a factor of the environment that you're in. And when I went to work, in the CPA firm, it was, I made it very clear that that a partnership was what I was coming there for, and then other opportunities were out there, and I stayed with the firm, but there was never any question about what I was working for, and I think they understood that if they weren't aligned with that, that was probably going to mean I wasn't going to stay with the firm. It was a very, very small firm, which probably aided me in that process.